Dear Acharya Pranam. In our culture, we sing songs from birth to death. All emotions are expressed through music. Acharya, I heard that we should not get carried away by music. I don't understand this. I'm not a singer, but love to express myself through songs. Without my songs, life would be very dry. Acharya, kindly talk on whether music is a help or hindrance in the spiritual path. Many saints were experts in music. They composed beautiful songs. Please tell me the significance of music in spirituality. Music is mostly a hindrance in the spiritual path. Why? For the exact reason that you have mentioned in your question. You have said, in our culture we sing songs from birth to death. All emotions are expressed through music. That is what the ego uses music for. To not merely express emotions, but also to amplify emotions. Now, what are emotions? Tendencies, deep, latent tendencies of the body expressing themselves are called emotions. And emotions are stronger than thought. Because thought is at the superficial level, the conscious level. Emotions are deeper. They arise from very primitive tendencies. Attachment, obsession, these are not thoughts. These are emotions. Explosive violence is not a thought, it is an emotion. Overpowering anger is not a thought, it is an emotion. And love and joy are not emotions, are they? Is love an emotion? Not really. Is joy or realization an emotion? Not really. Unfortunately, we place just too much emphasis on emotion. What misleads us is the fact that emotion and thought appear to be a little different, and they are different. Thought calculates, emotion Cannot. Thought has a certain worldly sanity. Emotion does not have that. Because emotion cannot calculate, so we feel that probably emotion is above thought. No, emotion is not above thought. In terms of consciousness, emotion is below thought. Because emotion arises from the subconscious, unconscious basement of your being. All the evolutionary experiences are stored in your mind. And they are very, very deep because they are very, very old. They are not accessible to conscious thought, but they show up as emotion. Essentially, it is your evolutionary self that expresses itself through emotions. Just because something is not in the province of thought, that does not make it divine. Thought calculates, emotion does not. That does not mean that emotion is divine. Thought looks at worldly stuff and norms and mores and tries to act a little sane. Emotion does not. Emotion knows no limits and emotion can go insane. That does not mean that emotion is beyond thought. In fact, emotion is below thought. Don't be misled by emotion. Emotion is very deceptive. Don't be carried away by the physical surges of energy, those overpowering gasps. Those overwhelming inner convulsions. There is no purity about them. But we are quite sold out to emotions, aren't we? If somebody expresses himself in intellectual or logical terms, we accord only a certain weightage and respect to that person. But if someone comes and starts weeping a bucket, then somehow we feel more assured that this weeping person is genuine. The true self is beyond thought. The true self is not a thought. But Parmeshwari, that does not mean that everything that is not a thought is the true self. Kindly do not try to associate emotion with purity and divinity. There is nothing pure about emotions. Greed, lust, what are these? Is lust a thought? Or is lust more or less instantaneous? Does lust even give you space to think? In fact, if you could think in the moment of great lust or anger or depression, then you would act better. Thought has its uses. The emotional ones need to be thoughtful ones. And the thoughtful ones need to graduate into meditativeness. I have repeatedly said, sentimentality is not sensitivity. All emotions have just one thing at their core: preservation of the little petty self. There is nothing else that emotion wants. For that matter, there is nothing else that thought wants either. But in case of thought, at least thought does not enjoy the privilege, the luxury of being called holy. Emotion enjoys the aura of holiness, and for no valid reason whatsoever. No valid reason. Now, music is something very unique. Music does not rigidly adhere to guidelines of logic and reason and sanity. Poetry is not prose, and music has no words. So music is saying a lot without using words. And poetry is saying a lot by using words, but not in a very logically organized way. And thought needs words. Thought feeds on words. So music and thought do not go very well together. Now, except thought, what do you have? Outside the province of thought, what do you have? You have both truth and tendencies. There is thought, and tendencies are not thought, and truth too is not thought. Most of the music does not correspond to thought. Now, it could correspond either to truth or to tendencies. Unfortunately, Parmeshwari, 99.99% of the music that we have, The verses, the lyrics, the poetries, the songs that we have do not correspond to truth. They correspond to tendencies. And emotions and tendencies are one. We have talked of that. That is why in religions like Islam, music is not promoted. The wise ones understood that music leads to an inflammation of the otherwise latent tendencies. So it is also a fact that the Quran itself is quite musical. But then that's what Islam says. Music has to be reserved for the highest purposes. It should not fall into untrained, unwise, unmeditative hands. Otherwise, music is a very, very dangerous weapon. It can arouse all kinds of passions in you. And that's what mankind has mostly used music for. Go to YouTube and look for music. What kind of music do you come across? Music that is meditative? Music that will take you to the truth? Songs that appear like coming from silence? Is that what you hear on YouTube? No. 999 out of 1,000 instances of music would be very, very corrupt music. Corrupt but enticing. Corrupt but exciting. Corrupt but very, very popular. I dare say that out of the top 1,000 most popular and most viewed videos on YouTube, a great majority would be musical videos. Am I right? Maybe more than 900? More than 900 out of 1,000. So there is something about music that immediately attracts the human mind. And Parmeshwari, unfortunately, that is not truth. The common man is attracted to music because music boosts the ego. Music gives you a certain arousal. Music is excitement. Whereas all spiritual practice is about moving towards peace. And that is why the matter of music has to be very delicately handled only by the seers and the sages and the prophets. Those who have known have said that music should not fall into the hands of the commoners. Otherwise, it's a weapon they will use to inflict great damage upon themselves and others. Avoid music unless and until you are very sure that it is coming from somebody wise, intelligent, realized. Lyrics, words, poetry that you usually come across is very venomous. But it attracts. Because it is not prose. For the sheer reason that it is not prose, it attracts. Why? Because the mind is fed up of prose, and prose is logic. Mind is fed up of logic. Mind wants to go to the one who is beyond logic. But the mind does not know, cannot identify the one beyond logic. So anything that is not logical appeals to the mind. Why? Because it promises to be the one who is beyond logic. It's like this, Parmeshwari. Suppose this is thought. And I sip it daily. I sip it daily. And this is just black tea. And this is what I have been brought up on. All I know is thought, this tea. So I'm just fed up, terribly bored. I want something beyond this. But I do not know anything beyond this. Because what else can the conscious mind know of? Only thought. Only thought it knows. So one day, somebody comes and offers me something that is not black tea. I'll be very glad to have it. I'll be glad to have it just because it is not black tea. But that does not mean that the stuff that has been given to me is good for me. Beyond black tea, I was looking for some good coconut water. That's what the mind was looking for. Truth. Truth that I am representing by coconut water. The mind was fed up of black tea. The mind was looking for coconut water. But the mind has never had anything except, so it does not know what coconut water is like. It also does not know what whiskey is like. And it cannot therefore tell apart coconut water from whiskey. So one day, tea was taken away from me and instead I was served whiskey. And I found that exhilarating. Why? It was exhilarating because it was not black tea. Additionally, whiskey is far more inebriating, exciting, energizing than even coconut water. Even coconut water. That's what music does to most people. We are fed up of thinking. So after a grueling day, we come back and what do? We switch music on. And then we say music heals the soul, which is total nonsense. It is just that you are fed up of tea. But instead of going up from tea, you have actually fallen down and you have fallen down to whiskey. And whiskey will be very attractive. Whiskey is emotions. Whiskey is the popular songs. That will be very, very attractive. Only a Krishna has the right to utter a Geet. You know what Geet is? Song. Gita is the song of Krishna. Not all these lyricists and poets, if they write a song, they are hurting and harming everybody. Only Krishna has the right to really sing. Only an Ashtavakra has the right to say Gita. Not all these songwriters. See what they are writing. And I am not merely talking of pop songs. I am also talking of respected poets. What are they writing? But whatever they will write will appeal to the mind because it is not black tea. And we are fed up of black tea. Are you getting it? The poetry part and the music part. I say both. Because it is quite possible that you might pick up the lyrics of a Kabir or a Bulle Shah. But the way you immerse them in music can be very, very demeaning. There are enough instances of songs of Kabir Sahab on the internet, and those songs are not at all Kabir songs. The lyrics belong to Kabir, but those songs have been raped because somebody else has loaded them, covered them with tunes, with music that is just not spiritual. Just not spiritual. The mind latches onto tunes very quickly, extremely quickly. You must have noticed that, have you not? Songs and tunes make a home in the mind and keep whirling within. Parameshwari, that is the reason Studio Kabir was started. So that the words of Kabir Sahab or Bulle Shah or Amira Bai can be given the simple, innocent and sublime music that they deserve. We are anyway in the grip of popular culture and popular songs. They are all around us, even within us. The songs of Studio Kabir are meant to flush out all the nonsense within you. Yes, you would be obsessed with tunes. So here is a tune. If you want a tune to latch onto, here is a tune. And this tune will act like a medicine. Not all tunes. 1 in 1,000 tune can act like medicines. Only the tune that is coming from a very meditative mind. Music and meditation have a lot in common. But obviously, and I'm repeating it for the 10th time, not all music. It has been surmised that when the sages had to say something that they could not express through words, then they used music. The meditative realizations of the sages could not be expressed in words. Word was incapable of expressing what the sages had just seen. So from there, music was born. And that is the only rightful purpose of music, Parameshwari. To arise from meditative depths and to communicate meditative truths. There is no other purpose that music has. But unfortunately, we use music, as you have wrote, to wallow in emotions. One is feeling attached and lustful, or gloomy, or high. One starts singing. This is a complete abuse of music. Such music is to be avoided, which means 99.99999% of all available music must be totally avoided. In fact, nothing damages the common mind more than common music. And I'll come back to Studio Kabir. That is why Studio Kabir was initiated, and that is why Studio Kabir is so extremely important. First of all, those compositions are being picked that have historically never been picked. Do you understand the deep and immense significance of this? Historically, those words, the bhajans, the sakhis, the kafis, that have been left ignored by the society, have been picked up and granted due place of respect in Studio Kabir. For the first time it is happening in the history of mankind. First time. It is a historical revolution. And after picking up those bhajans and kafis, the most simple, austere and innocent tune is given to them. A tune that would just not take away from the central meditativeness of the verse. A tune that would be completely in line with the environment of the verse. A tune that would not attract attention towards itself, but would rather promote the song, the message. Only such songs are beneficial. All other poetry, all other songs are deeply poisonous. And I say that with no conditions attached. Saints used music, you have written. Many saints were experts in music. They have composed beautiful songs. Yes, and only the saints have the wisdom and the authority to compose and use music. Otherwise, I'm repeating, music is a very, very dangerous weapon. In the hands of the saints, music is wonderful, but only in the hands of the saints. All classical music was devoted to the truth, not to emotions. Parmeshwari. You know very well that classical music owes allegiance to Shiv. Classical music is not about birthday parties and dating. It is not about your emotional stuff. A new baby has been born. Somebody is getting married. Somebody just earned some money. Somebody's wishes have been fulfilled. What does the original music have to do with these things? Original music arose from Prakriti. You know where the various rags come from, don't you? And Prakriti is Shakti. Shakti singing for nobody else but Shiv. That's music. All else is nonsense. these beats, these sensations, these vibrations that you hear in the name of music are extremely corrupting influences. And in that, I am not exempting even folk music. Kindly do not think that I am implicating only the so-called modern versions of music. No. Even traditional music or folk music is essentially the same. Glands driven, hormone driven, emotion driven. When a corrupt mind picks up the pen to write something in prose, rest assured, he would only express all his pent-up rubbish. He is capable of expressing only two things: either considered thought, expressed with deliberation, expressed after taking due time, or if he does not take due time, he expresses spontaneously. Then it is going to be worse than thought, not higher than thought. The spontaneous utterance of a sage is musical. The spontaneous utterance of a fool is abusive. Ironically, a lot that is abusive is passing off as music. Be cautious, Parmeshwari. There is no goodness per se in emotionality. None at all. Both have given up prose, but there is a great difference between a poet and a sage. Great difference. And sometimes it is easier for a commoner to graduate to sageness than it is for a kavi to graduate to a rishi. Do not get mixed up. Rishis have been kavis. That by no way means kavis are rishis. If you teach lust to an adolescent, using thought and intellect and logic, it would be quite difficult. Very difficult. But lust can be very easily implanted inside the adolescent mind by just using music. Music that appears so harmless on the surface if you want to arouse passion, emotion inside someone, using intellectual means, it would be not easy. But use music and see what happens. You want to excite people to fight. A speech will not be as effective as dhol and nagade. You can keep delivering the most animated speeches. They will have some effect. But if you can have military music, then it appeals not to the mind but to the whole body. The moment the valorous call of the dhol, the turang, the nagada hits the body of young and strong people, they find that their entire bodies are vibrating. And it has nothing to do with thought or any intellectual comprehension. It just happens. You just get eager to fight. What is spiritual about all this? Don't you see what music is? Music bypasses the intellect. And is therefore quite dangerous. Music bypasses the intellect, and therefore it can be quite liberating as well. But as I said, Parmeshwari, liberating music is to be found in 1 in 10,000 instances. All else is very avoidable. Whenever you come across musical compositions, just ask, are they centering you Or are they having a more or less hormonal effect upon you?